so nice of you all to come. I appreciate it very much.
Your mic is not on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Pizzatola. Thank you for joining us. In his new book, The Last Leaf, Voices of History's Last Known Survivors, our guest, Stuart Lutz, gives us a collection of perspectives on 20th century America you are unlikely to find anywhere else. Many of the witnesses he interviewed for his book are accomplished individuals themselves, but often they were ordinary people who found their lives touched by extraordinary events. In The Last Leaf, you will find amazing first-hand accounts of the early suffragette movement, the last days of Amelia Earhart, memories of World War I, and even the stories of the last Civil War widows. One of the highlights of Stuart's book involves his interview with our special guest tonight, who I had the good fortune to first meet about 6 years ago when she published her memoir, The Days We Danced. Her name is Doris Eaton Travis. And Doris's book tells her story and the story of her theatrical family, the successes and the sorrows that stretched across the decades of the history of American entertainment. Doris was one of the original Ziegfeld Folly performers, and the only one still with us. She performed for President Woodrow Wilson in 1911. In Hollywood in the 1920s, she introduced the song Singing in the Rain. For many years, she owned and operated Arthur Murray Dance Studios, and most recently, she has made an annual trip to New York to be the main attraction for the benefit performances of Broadway Cares. She was just there 2 nights ago. At the wondrous age of 106, she is by most accounts the oldest living performer in America. Not to mention the sweetest and the most inspiring. Please join me in welcoming Stuart Lutz and Doris Eaton Travis.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous tonight. There are probably many times Mrs. Travis has appeared on stage with somebody in their 30s, but I have to admit this is the first time I've ever appeared performing with somebody who's a centenarian. So, The Last Leaf contains 39 stories with anybody who's the last survivor or final eyewitness of any historically important event. So we have the last 3 Civil War widows. The last one only died about 18 months ago, and everybody's trying to calculate that. She was 18 when she married an 80-something-year-old Civil War veteran. The last Harry Houdini stagehand, who is still alive. Houdini died in 1926. The last Triangle Shirtwaist Fighter escapee, which was in 1911. I went down to West Virginia a couple years ago to meet the last World War I soldier, who just turned 109 last 2 months ago. One of the first interviews I did in the book was the last pitcher to give up a home run to Babe Ruth. In the 1927 season, when he hit 60 home runs, the man had never appeared in the majors, was called up in September, put out on the mound, and Ruth hit a grand slam off of him. Some of the stories are war stories. There's the last Iwo Jima flag raiser. There's the last man alive to win the Medal of Honor at Pearl Harbor in 1941. There were 15 Medals of Honor awarded that day. 10 of them were killed that day. He's about to turn 101 this year. He was hit by a shrapnel 20 times and refused to leave his post. The last Thomas Edison employee. The final witness to the first television broadcast. She was actually the first woman also broadcast. And basically the book's an attempt to get all these great old stories before the last survivor passes away. The book contains humor, loss, innovation, risk, exploration, adventure, performance, arts, pretty much everything that's a human endeavor. So when I talk to Mrs. Travis tonight, it's going to be about the whole span of her life, because she's actually lived quite an interesting life. Besides performing as a young girl and then the Ziegfeld Follies, she also ran a string of Arthur Murray studios for many years. She then retired in 1968 to work on a ranch in Oklahoma. So you retired before I was born. And you retired in 1968, before I was born.
Oh, really? Thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
And reading through your biography last night, it's like reading a history book, because you talk about people like Al Jolson, Will Rogers, Babe Ruth, George Gershwin, people who've been long gone, and you're the last person to know any of these people. So just as a little background, you were born in 1904 in Norfolk, Virginia, and one of 7. And I was just going to have a few questions with you, a little bit of a back and forth. Tell me about the other night performing in New York City. You danced the other night?
Yes, I did.
And how
A
long?
couple of steps. Not too much, but a couple of
It was
steps.
great. I loved it.
One of the amazing things reading in your book is that you first performed on stage in 1911, which is a century ago. You
Yes.
performed the Bluebird. How did you get chosen for that role at age 7?
Well, in those days, many of the big cities had what they call stock companies, which was a group of actors and actresses that formed this company, and they would play a different play every week for about 3/4 of the year. And then,
They went a little closer.
okay, and so they would have a different play every year. And of course, some of the plays had children's parts in them. And it happened that this one week they had a request for several children in one of their shows. And my sister Evelyn, who was very much show business minded, loved the theater, took us down to apply. And they selected both me and my sister Mary to play the 2 parts in the show. So that's how we kind of started in the professional show business.
This was not in your book. You talked about, you told me at least, that you danced as a young girl for President Woodrow Wilson.
Yes, we did.
Tell me about that. That's almost inconceivable to me.
Well, they had these, periodically, the dance studios would put on programs. And Mr. Wilson and his wife, they also loved the theater. And my sister Mary and I played the dramatic parts of the children's roles in the Star Company there, as well as when they had a musical. And Mr. Wilson, he had the upper box, and he used to come they played a different play every week. So he used to come almost every week and sit up in his box and watch the show. He just loved it. So when Mary and I took the curtain call with the group, we'd always look up at them and wave, and so he began to wave back to us. So that's how we got sort of a little acquainted with him. And then his daughter sent me some flowers one day with a very lovely note saying how much he enjoyed watching my sister Mary and me in the different plays. So that's how I got acquainted.
You came to New York City in 1916, I believe.